All right, what is going on, boys and girls? We are back in the garage. It's been a couple weeks since I made a video, but I'm going to give you guys a little update on what's going on around here and what Bob is looking like nowadays. So first things first, though, as you saw in the title of the video, Summit Racing actually, I guess they keep tabs on their name and the general condition of their standings with the racing community and whatnot. So after I put that video out complaining about the oil pan where it was leaking when it was brand new and having to fix it on the car and things like that, they actually reached out to me. They saw the video. They reached out to me, and without me asking, without me complaining anymore, anything like that, they sent me back half of the money for the oil pan. Now, to me, that is a huge gesture on their part. That is as much as anybody could ever ask for, and to be honest with you, I didn't expect anything from them. They tried to make things right, in the beginning, and I guess I was just pissed that I had to fix this oil pan that was already on the car, and it was just a monumental task to get it out of the car. Now, I will say this, that they deleted or did not allow my review of the product because it had a reference to the price in the review. So the reason why that matters in this particular case is the price did change. I think I paid right at $300 for the oil pan, and by the time I left the review, it was $350. So my reference to $300 when the pan was $350, it doesn't look good, and I get that. Totally understandable. Total 100% hats off to Summit for making things right, or as right as could be in this particular case. So Summit, if you're out there, thank you very much. I do appreciate it. Okay, now let's get on to the update on Bob. So a lot of you will remember, I had Bob running, the tune-up going in the right direction. Bob spools up great now, even with the big turbo and the little motor and all that good stuff. So instead of taking Bob to the dyno as it sat, you'll recall that I was going to redo the wiring in Bob after the dyno. Well, I got to thinking about it, and knowing myself, I would probably try to take Bob to the track with the wiring the way that it was. And the wiring was fine. Everything worked. You may remember when Bob was making some good passes that every once in a while he'd shake the tires or do a wheelie, and it would knock the relays out of the relay box. And I'll show some slides right here. So rather than deal with those relays and potential problems and things like that, we went ahead and we're just going to redo the wiring before we go to the dyno, and we're just going to test everything all at once. The wiring, as you can see, was just terrible. I say terrible, it wasn't nice like I would like it to be. So anyways, now let's turn the camera around and show you guys what we got going on now. Okay, so first things first, we got these little doodads right here from Mad Racing. And what they do is they take all of these sensor wires. Each sensor has 3 wires. It's going to be the power, the ground, and the sensor output, which would end up normally going to the ECU. And as you saw on the slideshow, they used all that wiring was right here, and it was just a mess. So now there's a 5-volt and a ground. There's the ground right there. The 5-volt is right there, and it comes out of that, goes up into that block, and one row of that block is ground, one row is 5-volt, one row is the input to the ECU, and the other row is the sensor output wire going into there, which is bridge. So it goes in, comes right back out, and goes into the ECU, but it gets all that mess away, which is what we wanted. Last but not least, or actually another detail is some of these inputs were spread over these other plugs, so we consolidated them, and now all 8 inputs come out of this one side of this one plug and go to there. Now we're going to add a couple more into that plug. And we move some of the outputs over here, which control this relay, which is going to be fuel pump 1, fuel pump 2, and trans wire. And then this relay is the secondary injectors, this primary injectors, both coil leads. And one thing I forgot over here is this terminal is going to be the bump output for the trans brake. So, all right, so this video has taken place over the, I guess, a few days, probably even close to a week. But the wiring inside of Bob, as far as being race ready, is 99.97% complete. So we're going to take the camera down into the car and get a look at what we got done, and then we'll talk about that. All right, so this is pretty much complete over here. So we got this one wire to the left right here, which that guy is for the running lights in the back of the car. Everything over here is complete. These two guys are the USB cables. One is for the Holley, one is for the ECU Masters PMU. That dude is programmable. And then he's got somewhere back here, I don't know if you can see it or not, right behind here is the USB to serial connection conversion box thing. And that is pretty much it. So what we changed this time around compared to how Bob ran with the Ford motor was it's actually pretty involved. We actually changed quite a bit. So we added air tank pressure sensor to keep an eye on the overall capacity of what's in the air tank. That controls the boost. It's going to deploy the parachute, and it's also going to activate the shifter at some point. Now we don't have air shift in it yet, but it will. It's maybe even before we race it. So one other thing that we added, and we talked about in one of the other videos, I think, is this. So that's the Davis VPS, the vehicle position sensor, and it's wired in down through here, up through there, and that harness right there. So, I mentioned it in the other videos, but the VPS measures pitch, yaw, and roll. So we're going to use the pitch portion of it to control wheelies. We're going to use the yaw portion of it as a safety measure so that it will kick the parachute out if the car is too far sideways. And of course it's got accelerometers in it in the X and Y axis, so X being straightforward and Y being side to side. So we got all that stuff. We got all kinds of new data, more things to confuse my little simple mind with, and hopefully some stuff to learn. On to the next step. Okay, and now we got all that stuff done, it is time to go for a test drive around the neighborhood with no doors, no front end, and on methanol, making a bunch of noise. I'm sure my neighbors are going to love it, but it's 5 o'clock in the afternoon, so hopefully nobody minds too bad. So, no better time than the present. Let's do this.
Okay, we got just about everything tested. Test drove the car around the neighborhood, only had 2 small problems. One of which the shock travel sensor in the back was not reading, or it was showing full extent. The other problem was the water pump kept tripping the PMU because when the water pump starts, it draws a huge amount of amperage, and when it does that, the threshold or the inrush current threshold on the PMU was set too low. So it was essentially the same thing as blowing a fuse, but it tries 3 times, and once it can't successfully fire the water pump up, then it faults. The cool thing about it is, no pun intended, driving around the neighborhood on methanol, around the neighborhood is probably, I don't know, probably 1.5 miles, maybe 2. And the thing only got to 190 degrees on methanol with no water running and no fan on or anything. So that's pretty awesome. Everything works. I think the last thing we got to test is the boost control to make sure that it is functional as well. So I'll take you guys along for the ride on that. Okay, so we got the laptop out. We got the boost launch target set to 5 psi, and I think you can see that there in the screen in the top right corner, set to 5 psi. So we go back here, we're going to look at the PMU. Auxiliary is the air. You can see on the screen the air is going up. We have to enable the boost. Turn that on. Turn the air off because it makes too much noise and we don't need all that air. So the dash has an arm switch for the boost. That just enables the boost controller to work. The boost button on the PMU that I just showed you is actually to turn on the power to the solenoid. So it's a double whammy, safeguard, if you will, maybe something extra to forget. That's actually how it was in the first place, so I'm pretty used to that. So anyways, let's try it out. We got the boost launch target set to 5 psi, and we are ready to test it out. So on the steering wheel, that's launch, and that is scramble. Boost over there is turned on. I think you can see that. I think we're ready to go. So in order for the boost controller to work, it has to be 50% throttle. And somewhere down there, yeah, you can see my foot. All right, so we're ready to go. Throttle is down. And you can hear the boost controller pulsing away. And once you let off the gas, it relieves. So that's good. Boost control works. That is 100%. Oh, you know, I forgot to say something about it. I actually pointed at it, but on the dash, I added a screen, or I added a sensor that checks the air tank pressure before the regulator, so we know exactly what's in the tank before we make the pass. And that's what this dude is right here. So that is that's good. Everything is functional, and when you rewire something to this extent, that's always a good thing for everything to work. Like I said, the only problem was the shock sensor, and it had a pin that was pushed out of the douche connector, or whatever you call it, so it was just reading full travel when it was at no travel. So that's it. Now we're ready for the dyno. All right, guys, we got quite a bit covered in this video, doing some skipping around and whatnot. I think I'm going to change a couple of things from what I showed you earlier. So the boost arm switch on the dash and the boost power switch to the solenoids, I'm going to combine those. I said it was like that before, but actually it wasn't. Anyways, long story short, I'm going to change that so it's only one switch. And I'm going to go ahead and pre-wire for the shifter solenoid and the parachute solenoid and get that out of the way, even though they may or may not be in use yet. But enough of the rambling. That is the end of the video. Bob is you know, 100% minus a couple of optional things like that. So that is a good place to end it. Thanks everybody for stopping by. I appreciate it. If I do not happen to get another video out before Christmas, you guys be sure to have a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year, and we will see you in the next one. Thanks, guys.